Hello, everybody. I'm Nir Erez, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of MoveIt. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about MoveIt today and how we look at the future of urban mobility. So, MoveIt today has about more than 80 million users around the world. We're the largest public transit app, and we provide service in more than 1,500 cities. 78 countries. Actually, yesterday we just launched a city in Bolivia, which makes it 79. And our service is provided in 43 different languages. When we started MoveIt, we brought a very unique concept to the public transit app world, where we combine data from 3 different multiple sources. Whenever we get data, official data, from municipalities. By the way, you'll be surprised that more than 50% of the large cities around the world do not have this data available. We add it to our repository. We connect to operators of public transit. Probably most of them are private companies. We connect to their real-time servers to provide our users real-time data. But most importantly, we collect crowdsource information to enhance our data repository. When we take this together, we provide our users with real multimodal trip planning, the ability to get real-time information, service alerts, and eventually more mobility options. So I assume that a lot of you use public transit today, and a lot of you use MoveIt today, so we really provide all means of transportation into one repository that allow us to connect between buses, trains, subways, bicycle, walking, and even our service of carpooling, which is connect between drivers who commute to work and people that wants to get to the same destination. We combine on-demand services like Uber, Cabify, Lyft, or others into our service. What's unique about our patent technology data storage is that we have layers of information. We start by collecting the very basic, the bottom layer of static data. That is the schedule of the public transit system, the location of the bus stops, and the routes of the buses. On top of it, we add statistical data from our users. And whenever we know that every Thursday in rush hour, bus number 5 is 7 minutes delayed based on the schedule plan, we use the statistical data. It's much more accurate. On top of it, there's 2 layers of real-time. One, whenever it's available, we collect GPS data from buses. By the way, today we have connectivity to more than 3,000 operators around the world to get real-time information about millions of buses all over the world. But if that is not available, we use our user's device, GPS, to actually create a real-time data, because that allows us to understand where exactly the bus is. And the 5th layer is whenever our users proactively report about issues, we get that into our real-time information as well. So MoveIt today collects more than 500 million data points a day. As far as I know, this is the largest and most comprehensive transit or users data repository in the world. We use this information in an aggregated, anonymous way to draw the real precise view of the city or the metropolitan area's demand. What you can see here is just a snapshot of a specific time of the day that shows the corridors or the routes that commuters are using to get into Manhattan from the suburbs. When we collect so many pieces of information, we can actually generate a very clear and refreshed view of demand in every city around the world. So some of you will ask yourself, okay, what's the difference between MoveIt and Google Maps or Apple Maps? By the way, just to give you a perspective, out of the 80+ million users, about 70% of them using Android, which means they do have Google Maps preloaded on their device, and they deliberately, proactively installed MoveIt. So a lot of it related to the enhancement of the data. Think about daily commuters. A lot of the routes are pretty familiar to them, but RealTime is the real deal. They really want to see if they can save 5 minutes every day or 10 minutes every day by just knowing where transportation, where the bus is or where the train is. So this is just a very small sample of large cities around the world, and you can see the differences between having a real-time service or not. So whenever you don't have it, the value you get from the service reduced dramatically. I don't need to add more, but you can see by yourself. Another type of data enhancement or data accuracy relates to the position of the bus stops over the map. You'll be surprised to know that about 10% of all the bus stops around the world are mislocated on the map, which means that everybody thinks that they're in one location, but they're actually 100, 200 meters away, sometimes across the street. What we're doing at MoveIt is we're collecting a crowdsourced data that allow us to see that this group of points represent a group of people waiting for bus number 17, while the map or the data thinks that the bus is in a different location. It's very easy to validate because when you look at an example in New York City, you see that everybody's waiting where the green point is, while the bus stop's supposed to be where the orange point is. And when you go to Google Street View, you see exactly that the crowd was right. So what are we doing with this? We're sending this information to our group of volunteers to validate it and update our information. Out of the 80 million people who use MoveIt, about 1.5 million people actively volunteered to help us. We qualified about 200,000 of them to be editors. They're all volunteers, and this group of people is growing constantly. And they are editing the data, they are setting up new cities, and they're also maintaining the data that we have in current cities. So, you know, MoveIt together with maybe the largest database repository or global coverage on Earth, together with the power of the crowd behind us, is unbeatable. And I want to use the next few minutes just to talk about how we see the future of urban mobility for MoveIt and for the rest of the world. The way we look at mobility is as a technology stack. The bottom layer is the infrastructure layer, which costs a lot of money and takes years to build, roads, rails, etc. On top of it, we see the data and rules, which today are quite static. There are quite static rules about how to use the infrastructure. The next layer involved with the vehicles, as we know it today, and the top layer is how we used to consume mobility, but actually is how we're going to consume mobility in the coming years. So more than 1 billion people today already consuming mobility using MoveIt, Uber, Lyft, Cabify, or any other apps that helps them to consume mobility. But we believe that the revolution is moving back into the vehicle layer, which you can see in this show about electrification, connectivity, automation. But what people are not aware of is that the next layer will be the data and rules. MoveIt believes that municipalities, cities, will have to take way more of an active role managing mobility and transportation for the users. And as a result, there's a lot of information and data required to make sure that they can proactively control this. Eventually, the interface layer and the data and rules layers will rule them all. And if this is the situation, we at MoveIt approach these two layers in a way that for the next 4 years, MoveIt is going to strive to get to 1 billion users. We're going to end up this year with about 120 million. And we're going to provide cities the mobility operating system to support that. So with that vision, I would like to leave you to think about that and understand how much data is important to the future of urban mobility. Thank you very much for your time.